Okay, the last problem was a fairly straightforward quadratic problem because you got a nice number, you got a perfect square into the square root. But what happens if you don't? What do? Well, you're going to have to approximate it, but in the meantime, you got to get the problem set up. So I believe the problem I gave in class was 2x squared minus 3x plus 12. Okay, so plus 12. Okay, and if you go to factor this thing, because that would be easier than quadratic formula, you'll say I need the factors of 24. 2 times 12 is 24, so 1 and 24, and 2 and 12, and 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. Those are my factors. And you're going to say, okay, but I want them to add to 3. I want them to add, it's a positive, they got to add to, negative 3. And none of these even get to 3. You will get 10. If you added them, you'll get 11. If you added them, you'll get 14. If you added them, you'll get 25. So that's where you'd want to use the quadratic formula, is that none of the stuff's going to work, no matter how fancy I do it. So let me erase that stuff and say, okay, I'm stuck. I've got to use the quadratic formula. So I don't, normally you just go on and just throw in the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula isn't the fastest way, but it's the only way in this case. So A equals 2, B equals negative 3, and C equals 12. Remember, it should be set to 0, and I can't get it to. Here. Try it again. It should be set to 0. I can't write it because it keeps pulling it down. So it should be set to 0 because you want to find out where it crosses. And so I'm going to go put it in. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I recommend strongly you change all the variables to gaps with parentheses, so any of the squaring and double negatives that might occur don't catch you. Because that's where people make a mistake, even though they know how to do this formula, is they forget about all the double negatives, or the squaring a negative makes a positive and that kind of stuff. And I'm just going to dump the numbers in, and I'll do them in red here. So we're going to do A, and A goes here, so that's 2 and 2, and B is negative 3, so the negative 3, there's, you get one there, and then you get a negative 3 all squared. And I already talked about it's important that you put parentheses on it when you use your calculator. And then you'll get 4 times 2, we need C. C is 12. Okay. So when I do this thing, I'm going to get 3 plus or minus, and I'm going to get square root of 9, and I'm going to get negative 72. Sorry, negative, that's wrong, not 72, 96. 8 times 12 is 96. All over 4. And we got a huge problem here. Right here. That's going to equal negative 87. And you're going to have a square root on it. And if you try to put that in the calculator, that's going to give you, on the calculator, that's going to give you an error because it's actually in what we call an imaginary number. So I'm not going to worry about imaginary numbers in this class. In Algebra 2, you can learn about imaginary numbers, but we got a problem here. We don't know how to represent it, and so we're stuck. And so something like this is a very hard, you can't find any real solutions here. So this, if you were running to this in the class, you would write down something like no real solutions okay, and that part under the square root is the problem here. We don't know how to give it an actual decimal number or even something like that. It cannot be represented that way. Okay, so I'll stop it here, and then we'll revise the problem on the next video where you can see how I would solve it.